Good evening and welcome to Primetime News here on TV1. You're joining me, David Paldano. Now, before we head into your stories in more detail, let's first take a look at your headlines this evening.
Newsfirst headlines. Main sponsor.
Valuable Finance, best finance company.
Inspector General of Police issues a statement for the first time on investigations into the April 21st attacks. President appoints advisory committee to examine grievances of those imprisoned on charges of terrorism. COVID-19 caseload in Sri Lanka exceeds 400,000. Health Minister requests oxygen from India. Why was the 10,000 rupee pack distributed among those in quarantine limited? Questions opposition leader Sajid Premadasa. Court orders for the remains of the Mathugama suspect to be preserved until investigations into the death conclude.
Newsfirst headlines. Main sponsor.
Valuable Finance, best finance company.
Now taking a look at one of the headline-making stories. Delivering a special address, Inspector General of Police C.D. Wickramaratne iterated investigations into the 2019 April 21st attacks will be concluded in a manner which ensures all details are revealed and justice is meted out against those who are connected to the attacks. He added neither him nor his subordinates are being influenced by external parties in carrying out their duties.
I was empowered by the incumbent president to complete investigations into the April 21st attacks and bring before the law all those who are connected to the attacks, regardless of his or her status in society. As part of examining the matters at length, I restructured the CID, TID, police intelligence and other investigative arms of the police, whilst appointing fresh officials to head the relevant institutions. The team of investigators analysed telephone conversations between the 29th of June 2014 until the date of the attacks. Since then, an extensive investigation has been carried out, paying attention to all factors which should be probed during a complete investigation, including technical facts, intelligence reports, and telephone conversations, while protecting the confidentiality of the probe. As a result, it was instantly evident that the events leading up to the April 21st attacks were not isolated incidents. Further, vital details of local and foreign figures who disseminated extremist ideologies, individuals who provided financial aid, those who granted logistical support for trainings, people who utilized their political influence to promote extremist ideologies, and individuals who were engaged in indoctrinating masses were revealed. One special element unearthed through investigations was that these extremists had formed a second string of extremists through indoctrinating children to carry forward their cause. Investigators also discovered that Zaharan and others who committed suicide were only a small part of a larger network of extremists. Assistance of international agencies was sought in identifying suspects who had provided financial aid to carry out the attack while residing overseas. In excess of 100,000 telephone conversations were analyzed, bank accounts were investigated, and by now, assets of many terrorists and their aides have been confiscated. Cash, movable and immovable property worth 365 million rupees have been confiscated, while assets worth 183 million have been frozen. The Attorney General has already filed indictments against 46 accused with regard to committing conspiracy over the 2019 April 21st attacks. Further, over 100 investigation files were completed and were directed to the Attorney General, and a senior team from the AG's department is studying the investigative material to consider filing indictments. The investigations into the April 21st attacks were hindered greatly through several figures in administrative roles neglecting their duties, overvaluing their abilities, and attempting to garner fame for concluding the probe within a short span of time. Any person will be able to ascertain the time frame required to complete an investigation into a terror attack through browsing the internet and studying examples of terror attacks carried out in foreign countries in the past. I have heard of a verse in the Bible followed by Catholics which reads, "If anyone slaps you on the right cheek, turn to them the other cheek also. And if anyone wants to sue you and take your shirt, hand over your coat as well." Although Catholic devotees must be facing a dilemma on which policy they should follow as a result of this heinous crime, it is our intention as officers of the law to witness the perpetrators of this attack being punished by the law for their crimes. As the Inspector General of Police, I wish to state it is our duty to ensure an all-encompassing probe is carried out to support the judicial process. It is only by doing so can we give relief to those aggrieved and avenge those who lost their lives in this attack. I will responsibly state, neither I nor my subordinates will be influenced by any external party during the course of this probe.
සඳහා මා විසින් ඉඩ නොදෙන බවත් කිසිදු බලපෑමකට මා හෝ විමර්ශන කණ්ඩායම යටත් නොවන බවත් විශ්වාසයෙන් යුතුව ප්‍රකාශ කිරීමට කැමැතියි.
Social activist Shehan Malaka appeared before the Criminal Investigation Department today to record a statement regarding his comments made at a recent media briefing regarding the April 21st attacks.
Shehan Malaka was summoned to appear before the CID on the 23rd of this month. However, his counsel informed that he will appear before the CID today. Accordingly, after arriving at the CID this morning and recording statements for nearly 7 hours, Shehan Malaka expressed his views to the media.
They recorded a statement on the facts revealed by me regarding the April 21st attacks investigations. They said that they are going to record another statement tomorrow as well. I am willing to fully contribute towards bringing justice to the victims of the April 21st attacks and to reveal the truth behind these attacks. We believe that we will get justice through these investigations. The Catholic Church and these youth activists are waiting to reveal the truth behind these attacks. We are ready to contribute fully. We hope that these investigations will help us achieve our target. President Gotabaya Rajapaksa has appointed an advisory council to make recommendations and decisions under Section 13 of the Prevention of Terrorism Act.
The council is chaired by the former Chief Justice Ashoka De Silva. Accordingly, the council consists of retired High Court Judge AAR Heyanthurua and retired Solicitor General Suhada Gamlath as well. The panel is expected to make recommendations and advise the President on future decisions, including the investigation, release and granting bail of prisoners and detainees on terrorism charges. According to a statement from the President's Media Division, the absence of such an advisory council, those detained under the PTA did not have a right to produce their claims, and with the appointment of the new advisory council, such prisoners will be given an opportunity to highlight their issues.
Now shifting our attention to the COVID-19 situation in the island, data from the epidemiology unit reveals that nearly 20% of COVID-19 deaths reported in Sri Lanka have occurred at homes or pre-hospitalization. This is in view of the COVID-19 death reports in Sri Lanka until the 13th of August. According to the latest analysis released by the Epidemiology Unit of the Ministry of Health, the total number of COVID-19 deaths in the country up to the 13th of August was 5,775. 4,661 of these deaths had occurred during hospitalization. The number of patients who had died upon admission to the hospital or during hospitalization owing to COVID-19 was 362. In addition, the Epidemiology Unit estimates that 12.9% or 745 deaths owing to COVID-19 in the country have occurred at home. Accordingly, it has been revealed that 19.2% of COVID-19 deaths in Sri Lanka during the relevant period occurred at home and when patients were referred for treatment. Yes, this is an issue. We need to find out why these patients did not visit a hospital. Was it because the patients were unaware of their illness or the serious symptoms, or was it because of something else? This is why we always urge the general public to be more vigilant about the symptoms of the patients who are being treated at home. As soon as you notice a difficulty in breathing, you should rush the patient to a hospital. It is very important to get hospitalized before the illness aggravates. The number of reported COVID-19 infections in the country has exceeded the 400,000 mark. This was after the inclusion of delayed reports of COVID-19 infections over the past 4 days.
Will the quarantine curfew be extended?
On Friday, when the Presidential Task Force convenes, we will decide whether we are going to extend this quarantine curfew beyond the 30th based on the number of COVID-19 cases and deaths.
What causes the surge of COVID-19 fatalities in the country?
At present, there is a possibility of administering the COVID-19 vaccines in hospitals through doctors and healthcare workers. But there is a huge issue in the supply chain of these vaccines to hospitals. We can see a trend where the required number of vaccine doses to administer are not supplied to hospitals. According to what we identified, the epidemiology unit, which is overlooking the whole vaccination drive in the country, has failed to supply these vaccine doses to hospitals. Under these circumstances, there is a long-standing delay in administering these vaccines to people above the age of 60. And with this delay, the number of infections and deaths in the country has increased. The main cause for this increase in fatalities in the country is the delay of vaccinating people above the age of 60.
Sri
Lanka has been placed in top ranks when comparing the mortality rate per population with the rest of the countries. 75% of the population consists of those who are aged above 60. 92 to 93% of those who have died were unvaccinated. There has to be someone who is responsible. Those who changed this report compiled by the Health Ministry on the 18th of January 2021 should be held responsible. The report clearly shows how the vaccines should be managed properly and carry out the vaccination rollout. After promising the World Health Organization and the rest of the world that those above 60 will be vaccinated, the system was suddenly changed. Instead of inoculating those above 60, those between 30 and 60 of age were inoculated. But nobody knows who changed these guidelines. So these are murders carried out intentionally. The government keeps on saying that 98% of those who were above 60 years and died were unvaccinated. So why did those above the age of 60 fail to obtain the vaccine? The government did not order and obtain the vaccines at the right time. These are not natural deaths. These should be called culpable murders. These deaths occurred owing to the negligence of the government. There is no point in blaming the people of this country without bringing down the vaccine at the right time. The government should be blamed for this.
As far as I remember, I am the one who proposed to the Parliament to bring down the vaccines to curb COVID-19 in the country. I made this statement in Parliament on the 13th and 23rd of November last year. Back then, some of the influential ruling party parliamentarians laughed and made sarcastic comments on my speech, and they said they have a better way to curb the virus. Those who said so were the first ones to contract COVID-19. But now we saw how the President highlighted the importance of this vaccine during his recent address to the public. However, they should have realized this 6 or 7 months ago. If they have taken this decision back then, the vaccination drive in the country could have been successfully completed by now. But with the current rate of vaccination, we might have to re-administer the vaccine to people again in January or February next year. The efficacy of the vaccine which was given to us earlier will decline after 1 year. When that happens, the pandemic will go beyond the control of the government. The government always claims that they have been able to administer the vaccine better than other countries in the world. But when it comes to this comparison, they always compare us with the weakest countries in the world. We cannot be satisfied with such comparisons. They are trying to hoodwink the public by comparing our country's vaccination drive with an unstable country in Africa. At the end, we are just fooling ourselves.
The government has decided to provide the relief pack worth 10,000 rupees only for low-income earning families who are undergoing quarantine. According to a statement issued by the Presidential Task Force on Economic Revival and Poverty Alleviation, the decision in this regard has been reached at the cabinet meeting held on the 23rd of August 2021. All district secretaries, government agents and divisional secretaries have been notified of the decision.
Opposition leader Sajid Premadasa has heavily criticized the government's decision to distribute the 10,000 rupee relief pack only among a selected crowd. In a statement, the opposition leader notes most nations which have imposed lockdowns ensure the welfare of its people, but in Sri Lanka, even the provision of a relief pack is suspended. The leader of the opposition also iterates Sri Lanka, which has fallen among the 5 poorest nations in the world in terms of food affordability, with households spending nearly 66% of its income on food. The release adds the government is requesting a populace already in despair to make further sacrifices while allowing their close aides to benefit greatly through frauds such as the sugar and coconut oil scam. The opposition leader says it is outrageous for the government to expect people who cannot even afford a single meal to make sacrifices.
Meanwhile, Health Minister Kehliya Rambukpala has requested the Indian High Commissioner to Sri Lanka, Gopal Pagle, to pay attention, special attention in fact, to Sri Lanka's oxygen needs. The minister had made this request during a friendly discussion held at the Suvasiripaya Health Ministry complex today. During the discussion, the Minister of Health commended India's support to Sri Lanka in COVID-19 eradication. The Indian High Commissioner has ensured that India will provide its support to the best of its ability. The practical challenges the two countries have faced in terms of COVID-19 was a topic of discussion during the meeting. The Minister of Health has also requested the Indian High Commissioner to Sri Lanka to focus on the supply of tocilizumab medical drugs to Sri Lanka. The COVID-19 vaccination rollout got underway throughout the island today as well. Meanwhile, the People's Liberation Army of China will provide doses of Sinopharm for Sri Lankan armed forces.
Army Commander General Shavendra Silva said the stock of vaccines will arrive in the island on the 28th of August. The People's Liberation Army of China will provide 300,000 doses of the Sinopharm vaccine. Meanwhile, a digital certificate certifying full vaccination will be issued after the 15th of September. Minister of Health Kehliya Rambukpala said that by the first week of September, 75% of those over the age of 30 are expected to receive the second dose. 205 vaccination centers operated across 24 districts in the country today.
Comments were made at a media briefing held today regarding the importance of granting easy access for all citizens to undergo COVID-19 tests. COVID-19 tests are easily accessible in most nations. In countries such as India, an antigen test kit can be purchased for 170 rupees. In developed nations such as England and Germany, rapid antigen tests are sent via posts to home. The government cannot hold a monopoly on PCRs and rapid antigen test kits, therefore handed over to the private sector. One should be able to purchase it from any pharmacy. For those who cannot, community health staff should be assigned to deliver kits to their homes. The government is holding on to the monopoly whilst converting it to a business. This pandemic cannot be contained by doing so. Allow the private sector to import the rapid antigen test kits and distribute it among pharmacies. A rapid antigen test costs 2,000 rupees. Imagine the plight of a person who is a Samruddhi beneficiary. Such a person is only given 2,000 rupees for 10 days by the government. If they spend 2,000 rupees on a rapid antigen test kit, they will have to starve for the next 10 days. This can be purchased for 150 to 200 rupees after holding bilateral discussions between states. Purchase it in that way and distribute it free of charge. The people are unable to bear it if an antigen test kit imported for 150 rupees is sold for 2,000 rupees.
These are the guidelines issued by the Ministry of Health on conducting a rapid antigen test. Let me read the fourth sentence on it. Not to be used as a freely available screening or diagnostic assay in low risk situation or on demand without risk assessment. That means it is illegal to allow the rapid antigen test to be freely available. Further, supply cannot match demand. If a person is to be given the test kit, an assessment must be held. That is how much this country's health ministry cares for its people. Curtailing access to these tests and hiking its price have contributed largely to the rapid spread of the virus in the country. Those have been published by gangs at the Ministry of Health. When News First inquired from the Minister of Health, Kehliya Rambukpala, on the matter, he revealed the daily capacity of COVID-19 tests in Sri Lanka is 25,000, adding It is the government's sole intention to expand testing capabilities. The Minister of Health, elaborating on the matter, further said the government's intention is to prioritize the vaccination drive in Sri Lanka.
Is there a connection between data from the NMRA cloud storage going missing and medical drug transaction? The Frontline Socialist Party highlighted serious concerns over the matter.
Since
2018, the registration of a medicine importer to license renewal were carried out online. All the data was stored in a data cloud which is maintained by the government. However, on the 9th of July, it was reported that the data was erased. Sri Lanka Telecom is the body which maintains this government data cloud, and it has been monitored by the Information and Communication Technology Agency of Sri Lanka. If so, who had the access to enter this system and erase such data? It is clear that there are some racketeers behind this. Who had the password for this data storage? What is happening to the national security of our country? Scammers can easily access to the government data cloud and erase everything. In any data storage system, there is always a recovery system. Didn't we have such a recovery system in the government data storage? It won't be easy to fool us by such excuses. It is clear now. The government officials are also clearly involved with these racketeers.
රජයේ බලධාරීනුත් මැදිහත් වෙලා ජාවාරම්කරුවොත් එකට එකතු වෙලා නටන නාගම මේක.
Views regarding an attempt to incur a cost of 60 million rupees for the urgent renovation of the 24th floor of the World Trade Center building where the Board of Investment is located were expressed today as well.
This is the office of the BOI. It is on the 24th floor of the World Trade Center. They are attempting to renovate this floor utilizing 60 million rupees. Moreover, they are attempting to hire 29 new employees to the floor with a monthly salary of 20 million rupees. While the government spends lavishly on this endeavor, patients are suffering at hospitals without beds and outside of hospitals. While patients are admitted in corridors, under beds and near restrooms, the rulers are spending massively for ventures such as this. This is a tragedy. These leaders are acting blindly.
We're going in for a short commercial break. Stay tuned for more of the very latest.
Valuable Finance, best finance company.
Bellboy's got you covered. Download Bellboy today to get all your household appliance fixing and repairs done. Now available on Android and iOS.
Welcome back to the news. Up next is Crime Watch.
On the 22nd of August 2021, Mathugama police arrested a man on suspicion of peddling illicit liquor. Hours after the arrest, police claimed that the suspect had fallen ill, and several hours after that, the suspect was reported dead. Yesterday, the autopsy revealed that the suspect had died of COVID-19. Today, the case was called up in the presence of Mathugama magistrate Dhammika Uduvavithana, where an order was made for the investigations to be handed over to the Thodangoda police. In addition, the Kalathura District General Hospital Director was ordered by the court not to release the body of the deceased from the hospital morgue. Evidence is to be recorded by the court tomorrow. I demand justice. They have failed to show us the PCR report. They say that there were no injuries in his body and told us to do whatever we can. We saw everything with our own eyes. He was beaten. Statements have been recorded from the 3 police officers who made the arrest, and that investigation is carried out by the OIC of the Thebuana police. The police officers who made the arrest have been placed in self-quarantine.
The Monetary Board of Sri Lanka has imposed a maximum interest rate on foreign currency deposits in an effort to bridge the gap between the interest rates offered for rupee and foreign currency deposits.
Issuing a release, the Monetary Board has issued an order on maximum interest rates to be paid in respect of foreign currency deposit products of licensed banks and the National Savings Bank. It adds the Monetary Board may from time to time fix the maximum rates of interest paid by banks for various classes of deposits. It has set an annual effect rate of up to 5% on all foreign currency deposits
adding, quote, "In the case of special deposit accounts in foreign currency, the additional interest rate that can be offered or paid shall be over and above the 5% interest rate," end quote. Accordingly, the maximum interest rate offered or paid by a bank on foreign currency deposits shall not exceed an annual effective rate of 5%. The Geological Survey and Mines Bureau said that the tremors reported last night at the Atyala National Park had not caused any damage.
The quake measuring 2.5 on the Richter scale was reported at around 9:15 last night in the southern part of the Atyala National Park. According to our correspondent, residents of Lunugambehera, Beralihela, Sinimulla and people living in the vicinity of the Lunugambehera Reservoir and the Lunugambehera town had felt the effects of the tremor. According to area residents, the quake lasted for about a minute.
We live in Lunugambehera. Our houses shook for about a whole minute. We came out of our houses while the ground was shaking. The tiles on our roof shook as well. All of this shook and the people came out onto the street. Some people called us and asked about it too. People living in Debaravawa, Tissa Maharama had felt this quake. We got very scared. Everyone in our family came out. We couldn't understand where the sound was coming from. In the morning, we found out that there was an earthquake in the vicinity of the Bay of Bengal. We are very scared.
We were watching TV at the time the earth shook. Even the TV shook. Even the doors shook. We then came out and asked around, and it was only then that we knew what happened. We heard a noise, the window shook and our children got scared.
We heard a loud noise at once. We couldn't imagine what was happening. The Lunugambehera Reservoir is located close to this place. I believe it is wise if this matter is investigated fast. We live about 2 kilometers from the reservoir. An earthquake was reported in that area even before. This was bigger than that.
However, the irrigation engineer of Tissa Maharamya confirmed that the Lunugambehera Reservoir has not been damaged by the incident.
Meanwhile, a 5.1 magnitude tremor was reported last afternoon in the Bay of Bengal, 600 kilometers away from Jaffna. The Geological Survey and Mines Bureau said the tremor had not caused any damage to Sri Lanka. An earthquake measuring 5 on the Richter scale was reported in the Indian Ocean on the 16th of this month. The quake that hit 1,200 kilometers south of Sri Lanka did not have any effect on the country. This was a situation that arose as a result of the magnitude 5 earthquake reported in the Bay of Bengal last morning. We continuously receive reports of such incidents. The magnitude 2 earthquake that was reported from Zone 1 of the Atyala National Park is a separate incident. We were cautious of the incident that occurred in the interior of the earth of the country at 9:20 last night. Throughout the last year, we identified around 15 such incidents where quakes were reported in the island. All the previous earthquakes occurred in areas such as Kandy, Haragama, Anuragama and surrounding areas. This incident is different. We hope to analyze this incident further and report facts on the matter. We have reports that a similar incident had occurred about 2 to 3 years ago. Our geologists are of the opinion that an artificial intervention was not the cause of the quake.
Mostly tremors occurring on the eastern border of the Indo-Australian plate are felt by Sri Lanka. If the details of the time of these tremors, the duration, what was felt by those who experienced it are reported to the authorities, it would be beneficial in studying these occurrences. There is no need to fear, since there is no chance for big tremors to occur in Sri Lanka. Around that time, several tremors were experienced in the eastern border of the Indo-Australian plate. I believe that we felt one of those tremors.
India and Australia tali නැගිනහිර මායිමේ කම්පන කීපයක් සිද්ධ වෙලා තියෙනවා. ඒ කම්පන වලින් එකක් තමයි මේ අපිට දැනලා තියෙන කියන එක තමයි මගේ අදහස.
Do you remember 9 tremors reported within the span of 3 months from multiple areas surrounding Digana, Kandy? 4 tremors reported on the same day, on the 5th of December last year. Large-scale dolomite excavations reported from the area, coupled with massive explosions. Minister of Environment appoints expert committee to probe the tremors. Expert committee report is issued, citing a plethora of causes for the tremors. Dolomite excavations on the boundary of the Victoria Reservoir banned. Recommendations to further probe the tremors. Is it wise to disregard 9 tremors reported from a specific area within the span of 3 months?
Meanwhile, the Samaki Janabalawege revealed of an attempt to vest the authority to import pesticides to one company.
Corn farmers are wondering whether to continue cultivation in the coming season. The tea cultivators have the same problem. Is rice coming from other countries like Pakistan organic? Was that questioned? The government has inconvenienced the people by imposing this ban under the guise of kidney disease. What will happen to the number of vegetables available once the vegetable stocks reduce by 40 to 50%? Is rice imported from abroad organic? Can this government, who accumulates debt for purchasing oil, the government that is in debt to Bangladesh, provide for the people? Are they capable of providing organic fertilizer required for the 1.4 million acres of paddy fields? If not, are they importing organic fertilizer? When the farmers are suffering, the government is rewarding their close associates. They are trying to import pesticides with an annual value of 12 billion. One company is getting ready to import pesticides worth 10 billion.
Verite Research implemented a telephone survey in July this year among 1,042 farmers who cultivated crops for commercial purposes and was distributed evenly among all 9 provinces.
Only 9% of our farmers cultivated without chemical fertilizer. And 76% relied heavily on chemical fertilizer. And it turns out that paddy farmers report the highest usage of chemical fertilizer. So 94% of paddy farmers actually use chemical fertilizer, and that's a very high level. And the lowest actually is exporters of kind of minor export crops. If you look at your donut charts at the bottom, the red section is those who experience a decline of more than 40%. So you can see that 28% experienced a decline of more than 44% in their harvest. 56% had other things to say. It's not just decline in harvest, but quality declines, the difficulties they had with the harvest. When we asked them about what they expect the decline to be in the future harvest, if they didn't have access to chemical fertilizer, the numbers were much larger. 85% expect a decline in their future harvest, and 50% expect a decline of 40% or more. So there is a very significant concern that harvests will decline, that crop will decline. People say they have experienced it already, and they expect to experience it significantly more in the future when they lose access to chemical fertilizer more fully, because currently people still have had access to chemical fertilizer.
Farmers who completed the survey requested for 3 major changes. 1. Advise and educate farmers on the use of organic fertilizer. 2. Farmers request for more time so that it can be a gradual transition to organic fertilizer. And 3. A substandard supply of organic alternatives. Now taking a look at some international news. The World Bank has halted funding for projects in Afghanistan after the Taliban took over Afghanistan. Now, it cited concerns over how Taliban's takeover would impact what they say is the country's development prospects, especially for women.
The move comes just days after the International Monetary Fund suspended payments to Afghanistan. The Biden administration has also frozen the assets of Afghanistan's central bank that are held in the US. Banks in the Afghan capital have reopened for the first time since the Taliban takeover on the 15th of August, but many people are still having difficulty accessing their savings. Although other banks are open, they say they have not been able to allow withdrawals due to a lack of cash from Afghanistan's central bank. The United Nations said that almost 60% of Afghans who have been forced to leave their homes this year are children. In total, almost 550,000 Afghans have been displaced so far this year. Meanwhile, UN Chief Antonio Guterres has pledged to remain in Afghanistan despite the political upheaval. According to UNICEF, COVID-19 vaccinations fell by 80% in Afghanistan in the first week after the Taliban took over the country. Evacuations from Kabul airport in Afghanistan have picked up pace, with the total number leaving since the Taliban takeover reaching 82,300. US President Joe Biden declared that he is sticking to his 31st of August deadline for completing a risky airlift of Americans, endangered Afghans, and others seeking to escape Taliban-controlled Afghanistan.
We agreed that we will continue to our close cooperation to get people out as efficiently and safely as possible. We are currently on a pace to finish by August the 31st. The sooner we can finish, the better.
Chancellor Angela Merkel has said Germany is prepared to talk to the Taliban to safeguard the gains of the past 20 years, but will not offer the militants any unconditional agreements. Although Afghan athletes have been unable to take part in the Tokyo Paralympic Games, their flag still appeared at the opening ceremony yesterday. The two athletes who were set to represent Afghanistan were among thousands of people unable to leave the country, but the International Paralympic Committee has since confirmed that they have been safely evacuated.
Meanwhile, US Vice President Kamala Harris again charged China with bullying its Southeast Asian neighbors, the second time in 2 days after she attacked Beijing during a regional visit aimed at countering China's growing influence. Early today, Chinese state media accused Harris of seeking to drive a wedge between China and Southeast Asian nations, with comments in Singapore that Beijing used coercion and intimidation to use against its unlawfully attack the South China Sea claims.
Speaking in Hanoi during a meeting with the Vietnamese president today, Harris said there was a need to increase pressure on Beijing over its maritime claims. She said, and I quote, "We need to find ways to raise the pressure on Beijing to abide by the United Nations Convention on the Law of the Sea and to challenge its bullying and excessive maritime claims," end quote. In an editorial responding to Harris's comments in Singapore, the state-run China Daily said, quote, "While pointing a finger at China and accusing it of coercion and intimidation, Harris willfully ignored her own hypocrisy in attempting to coerce and intimidate regional countries to join Washington in its scheme to contain China," end quote. In Hanoi, Harris met with Vietnam's top leaders and offered support in several key areas, including the enhancement of its maritime security and more US Navy ship visits to Vietnam.
And with that, we wrap up primetime news here on TV1. But before you go, we leave you tonight with footage of a brawl between two elephants captured near the Yat Polar Reserve in the Lahugala National Sanctuary. Of course, for the Newsfirst team, my name is David Paldano, along with our sign interpreter for tonight, Taraka Gabriel. Take care and good night.